Well, welcome to the Dream Labs. I am Dr. Contrast, and we are live. It's good to be back on board here today, gang. Hopefully everything's in good shape with everybody. And before I begin here today, it's the title of the program today, just a nice product design overview, materials, the work we do here in the labs. And I've been very fortunate over the course of time to work with a variety of clients, with a variety of different systems and detailed work to do so. Really got a lot of fun working with some great stuff here. So, hey, good afternoon, Doc. Thank you for today's lesson. Hey, looking forward to having you on board, Dakota. Everything good with you? Hopefully it's good. So if we carry on here, we'll just kind of roll here. Well, it's just been interesting. Just before I begin here, I want to just take a moment and thank you all for last week's situation where we went through a little bit of an overview and looked at programming, for example, coming down the line and what to expect from the Dream Labs here in the next few weeks and months to come. A lot of interesting things are taking place. I'm getting a lot of work coming in. Hopefully I'll get some approval from my clients to be able to put that live on television or on the YouTube. If I can, great. We'll just have to hold off and wait till we get some clearances. But in the meantime, I thought after last week's conversation, getting a bit of a program overview of what's happening and what's taking place in the future here, go back and step in a little bit and show you a little bit of a product design overview. And I think hopefully, Dakota, you get some interesting things here as we go through the process. So what I'm going to show you, what I present here today, is a variety of sketches done for a variety of clients, from Panasonic, Mettler Toledo, Little Tykes, first years in Boston, Massachusetts, just a variety of different client bases across the country that we've been working with over the past few years, and more recently some pretty good interesting stuff as well. So let me walk you through some things here, and Dakota, if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to stop me, and we'll kind of review some things here. So I'll begin here with a series of little thumbnail sketches. These are done, oddly enough, for a program that was in the East Coast, and it was just some baby money. It was, I think the corporation was the first years, did a lot of children's timers, alarms, sleeping systems, utensils, toys, etc. But they were looking at a camera system for night time and precautionary methods and working with children. So I started a series of thumbnail sketches on maybe some camera systems, just looking at a base variety of the things to deal with here, and I'm going to walk you through some things here. So there was sketch number one, then some other different timer systems as well, where you had a plan view look, a little bit of perspective, and some variations on the theme. These are sketches that were sent out very loosely to begin with, just to get an idea of what the potential program might look like or feel like. Good feedback all the way through, no problem whatsoever. Great client to work with. I think they're still active. We haven't done any work with them in about a year or so, but had a great relationship with their management, and they loved the work we were doing for them. So that was another variation on that little timing device. And moving from there into some color studies, taking those same clocking devices or timing devices, doing a little bit more of a variety of putting some color behind them, and little composition plates in terms of so they can see what the variety is of the product they're dealing with. And so far it was good. I mean, all the feedback we sent out there, we get feedback coming back in from their group, design group out there, and engineering group was very positive. So we're right on the money in terms of character and feel. So we just kept moving along with that. And again, another series of studies. Now this is going to switch over a little bit from the first years to Sony cameras. This is some of the really old-fashioned stuff here, but they brought back, this is pretty recent, about maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. Just a little thumbnail sketch, a little breakdown study in perspective, putting the shapes and forms together, and then getting in from that into a transfer into a little perspective study. And it was interesting because they wanted to go back to that look and wanted to see the characterization of how you break down a sketch and what the concept approach would look like. So this, again, we're done. Come back in here. And then another family of forms here. Some a little softer, a little rounder, a little newer looking, just an elevation study, and then do a little thumbnail study in perspective, again with that same camera look, that the recorder and so forth. Still active in the marketplace, but I don't know if I can't recall if they actually went to production, but I think a variation of these things were utilized in that process. So another family of forms here, again, a little bit of a different perspective. Notice all the sketches are very much structural. And I think that's part of the process too, and working with the client base to see how you build your shapes and how the confidence comes together in putting together forms and ideas with a telescoping lens and so forth. Interesting variation in themes here, and just a wide variety of approaches in sketch. And I think that's the basic lesson for today. The variety of approaches you take in putting sketch rendering forms together, from ballpoint pen to Prismacolor pencil pastel marker, all marker, tone paper. We'll move into that throughout the course of the presentation here today. And so move along here, keep coming at it. And again, last little study here, a little bit of a magnified sketch in terms of an overview of a viewing window. You know, back either way. It can reverse itself. That'll give you an image. It'll show back on the actual back of the camera itself. And again, just a good solid round scope of putting together concept sketches and putting it all together. So there's a series of forms there. Let's get these out of the way. This next family, I think you'll enjoy. This is interesting how this is another client we've dealt with for years. This was done for Mettler-Toledo, a weighing station, weight measuring system corporation. It's international. They do some great work, and they came to us looking for closed cabinet architecture in a weigh station for very hazardous meteorological areas, for example, in extreme cold weather for heat and so forth, where they had to get accurate measurements when these trucks come up on the weigh scale. These are pods that are done, for example, that can be interchangeable in those stations and a variety of locations around the globe. Basically in Antarctica and the Arctic Circle, and also in the tropical regions in Africa and South America. So a variety of things that we're looking for. But we went through a series of sketches here. These are some of the final sketch rendering studies that we sent to them for approval. These are being built. Some, I don't know which variations they chose, but I think that all four here that we put together, they went to market and they're being utilized globally. So here's sketch number one. Again, very hooded to protect it from weather and so forth. And then once the driver would come on the weigh scale, punch in the information, then that information would be transferred on the screen, which would be sent back to headquarters here in Ohio. So there's sketch number one. Move along here to sketch number two. Same variation on theme, a little bit more, but they're all very, very post-oriented. Probably about maybe 5 or 6 or 6.5 feet at the truck eye level for the driver, etc., to read and so forth. Another variation on theme on those weigh stations. And coming back in again, another variation on theme here, where we got actually a little rounder, a little bit more of a tent type of situation. Same, and then this one, a little difference. You actually program in the work from the actual cab of the truck itself. Let me move these out of the way. It's not disturbing you here. There we go. Punch in information, then you get to receive a ticket, and then you dial that in, and that goes to headquarters for verification. And what I think we're going to call from this whole process, the number of vendors they dealt with was overwhelming. Truck manufacturers, different systems of different corporations globally that were utilizing this process. So very interesting to see how it all came together here. So what do you think, Dakota? Is making sense so far? Are you still with me? Very good. I hope. Please feel any questions you've got, feel free to fire away. But again, just what's really amazing to me over the course of time, we have been very fortunate. I have been very fortunate to work with a really great group of clients, and a lot of work being done over the course of time. It really has been an interesting series of experiences, and it has taught me a lot of lessons in terms of really interesting coming together with approaches, listening very carefully what the needs are, and going back in and just delivering the goods when it's possible to do so. So again, back to Teller. There's another series here for Mettler. Another little round system, a little bit more romantic looking. Again, here's the actual the brow itself. This, I think, initially we wanted to take that brow and be able to pivot it, move it, and according to weather. Same thing process here, that the driver would punch in the information, and the information would come up, then you get to receive a ticket for a receipt and so forth. And again, variations on theme. This is sketch number 4. Then we came back here, another variation on theme, a little more of a rounded hood. With lighting and so forth over top, we kind of come back in and shine on the actual material. This one had an option too, where they wanted to have one that had a telephone or a receipt on it, so they can actually call in and begin to register certain things. And notice, very much articulated tube here that would actually rotate this piece according to the driver's needs, and to get it all weighed and put into place. So, and again, each one of these sketches, what you see here are some of the final work that was being done. But a lot of the sketches started out like this. First, a lot of sketches started out like that, just thumbnail sketches. And we send them out to our clients. They review them. We'd submit them and come back and they'd review certain things that they wanted to do with them, and what the changes might be and so forth. Then we came right back in and made some modifications and eventually put some final pieces together for those that benefit. And these are all these sketches from Mettler-Toledo. were done much larger and reduced down and put in this format so we can put it in portfolio use. And then one more study here, I think this is the same one. Yep, I think that's the same guy. Oh, sorry, we got duplicates here. There's a duplicate here. Got it, get rid of that. This is interesting. This is done for little tykes. Little tykes came to us recently here, and started to look at things like we've got new baby seats, for example, children's automobile seats, for example. How do you strap them in? What the look's going to be? What kind of things they're looking for in terms of design? And these are a series of thumbnail sketches in ballpoint pen, a little bit of marker added, looking at variations on theme about how to work with this thing. Notice it looks like the releases, it's child's area here. Some release, you can actually adjust this thing stretch-wise. It can go up or down and articulate a little bit more. So that was a series of family of sketches here done. But again, notice this thing rolls up. This would move forward and it go up and down, forward and rearward, and then articulate back and forth. So there's a series of sketches here that started. I'll walk you through some of these guys. This again was for little tykes, another family of forms here to show you the variation of theme, how the situation come in. Little variation of change here to get the actual pad itself. Its adjustment panel can fold, for example, ease of storage and portability. You can actually move that down or rotate it back, get it out of the way. And again, the child sits in here, very soft and luxurious. Again, these little detent areas here can be used to actually raise or lower the actual seating area that you're looking at here in the problem itself. Another little variation on theme here, just a much more of a pie-shaped form to develop the form and to put it into place here. So there we are. Fun stuff. I mean, really interesting. So another variation on theme here, same thing. Pardon me. Little removable handles. Again, that same contour for seating systems and so forth. This could be a dial adjuster, for example, to move up and down. This whole cushion area could articulate and move up and down. And again, same with this handle. Same process here, that same situation. And of course, what's missing are the buckling devices and handles and so forth, which we'll show you hopefully in a few moments here. And again, from those studies, we went to, there's another little series of passes, looking at front and rear sketches of how this is all done. A little bit of a back ledge in here for storage possibilities, or a belt system to come out of this little slot to be able to utilize it, and a grip system back here. So again, really interesting things to deal with in terms of putting together sketches here for the client base to look at and evaluate. And this is interesting. Now let's go back to this. Once we had the handle down, or the actual carrier down, we started doing they asked us to come back and do some conceptual handle studies for how to actually attach somewhere back into here. We would go back in to all the sketches and begin to put pieces together and reevaluate some of the shapes that they liked and put some of the handle graphics in place. So these are kind of a matching pair. For example, pivoting, for example, once it's area here, this will actually pivot the actual unit itself, wherever it's located, pivot back and forth to make sure we get that thing secured, the child secured. Again, concept sketch here. And let me get these out of the way here. I'll just put these on top of that. How's that? And then that goes that. Another family of forms here, where you actually take a shape, a little bit more of again, very much more of a organic form with that little bit of grip system underneath here, and a handle up on top here to kind of move it and remove it. And maybe a D-handle ring here. But this, again, would attach to those actual seatings, etc. How much research do you do on all these products before you start sketching? Quite a bit, actually, Dakota. It's a great question. Let me move these over so on the screen a little bit more. We'll just drop this guy a little bit so we can see it. Oh, let's just do this. We'll get these guys out of the way. And I'll continue on with your question. Those are the carriers. Those are the handles. Interesting. You'll actually, in a case like these, anything we're looking at, even some of those camera systems and some of those we've developed with in the Mettler-Toledo work, an enormous amount of research is put into the time frame of each one of these studies. And I think a lot of it is shared too. For example, Mettler, Little Tykes, some of the Sony people, etc. we dealt with. A lot of conversation back and forth about do's and don'ts. Look into this, analyze this material, this form. As you well know, the marketability, what's the spectrum? What are we looking at as far as the actual market range or the demographic? So a lot of work goes in behind the scenes here, Dakota. So that's a great question because, like you know, and from your experience, this stuff doesn't come about by just laying down on the sketch and saying, isn't this pretty or is this good? That's not the point. The point is making sure that you deliver those sketches based on the information you've received and the information you've developed on your own to kind of satisfy the need of the client. So let me stop there for a moment. Does that help to answer your question? Hopefully. Great stuff. I mean, there's no doubt. It takes an awful lot of time behind the scenes. The sketch is the last part of the cycle. The most important part of the whole cycle is getting the research down and doing all your diligent due justice in law of getting it all organized and take care of it all. So, what do you think? Dakota, good answer? If I want to elaborate on anything, please let me know. Very good. Thank you. Yeah, it is, I'm sure, from your experience as well. You begin to see that quite a bit. You just can't go in there, for example. Let me rephrase that. From my point of view, whenever we get an assignment or a program to deal with, I spend a lot of time up front talking to the individuals, marketing, advertising, development, engineering, materials technology, with those individuals to get a good overall picture of what the actual process is going to look like and what the outcome is going to be. So again, I've never taken anything at face value and began to conceive on certain things. There's always, even automobile design, everything I've ever done, there's a lot of background work that goes in between the lines to make sure that we're on the right target line and not wasting their time nor money. I'm respecting the client enough, as you well know, to make sure that we're delivering the goods first time through. And I made it a practice, I hope I can say this with a lot of clarity and respect. And I don't want you to misunderstand. My whole mantra in working with my client base is very simple. You can pay us once or somebody else 1,000 times. It's your choice. And I say that with a lot of conviction because when we sit down and do a lot of work, we make sure that we respect the client, make sure we hit the target, beat the deadline, meet the budget, and make sure we're in great shape. So I think there's a lot of importance in that. And as you well know too, Dakota, that's primary. So let's move along here. Unless you've got another question. So let's move along here. This has gone first year. Another series of handle studies. I mean, just really fun stuff to look at here. This again, the same shape that comes around here, very organic looking. And that was one of the things they wanted to get away from. They wanted to get away from the same old approach, just a nice little stick type that goes in and attaches to the carrier. They wanted something a little more romantic, a little more influential. And also, what we found out in our research was, once a decision was made on any one of these carriers, for example, these handle graphics, let's put those side by side. Once they made a decision on this is going into a variety of products that we'll show you in just a moment here. It wasn't just this one time for this carrier, this child seat, rear seat buckling system. It went into a lot of variety of products. So it was almost like a cross-reference, broad-based use within the system. So let me show you here. Let's go back to this. And we'll go back to this next one here. Again, here's another example. How much more fun it is to just put together some really interesting shapes and forms. I'm reversing the shape here, reversing the sweep here. A little bit more organic than that one we just talked about. And then this guy, same thing, very simple, but again, a lot of open area for handle and movability. And I think one of the things we talked about in this case here was this upper level could change from a horizontal piece to a vertical piece, so it actually shift. So there's a lot of stuff that's taking place here. Whoop, let me move this over so we get them on the screen. All right, there we go, that's better. So again, a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of fun. Let's move down the line here just a bit, and then another one. Now, this is what I was getting at. Notice, for example, now they have a little people mover for children, for example, same group, doing some neat stuff. All right, so we put back in here. Let's go back and pick the line up there. There we go. Notice, this is what they were working with initially. Just a simple straight rod, probably a powder-coated tubing of some sort, and then a little bit of cross-reference rim brace, and a handle grip on top. But these elements we just showed you, some of the variety of sketches of these guys right here. How many sketches that we're looking at? They wanted to combine that with this look, with this new children's carrier, this little cart. So a lot of neat stuff was going on. That's why I was getting into the duplicity of use. So it was actually being spread across their product line. Once they had the tooling on set, and ready to fly, they'd move it into another division of markets and other products. Not just carriers, but prams, baby carriers, passenger systems, all kinds of things that they're dealing with. So let me go back here and get rid of that guy. And this is, again, a family of shapes that for a little people mover for a toddler. Again, another variety of forms and sketches here. And one of the things they want to include in this thing from a safety point of view was once the handlebar, or once the handle or the grip was revised, looking at, for example, look at a lighting system. Like if they put at night, something safety reason, they put some lighting into this thing and make sure it was taking place and getting the job done for them. So interesting things. And again, the cap system on this guy was actually movable. And again, if you notice this whole thing, that pivot point right here was responsible for raising and lowering the actual cabin itself. And this is a closed canopy, either a soft material, like a vinyl of some sort, or they might have gone to a Lexan or a plastic. I don't think that would be the case, but I think that might have been one of the situations they wanted to look into as we go through the line here. So back to this guy, and I think we've got one more here to show you. Yep, variation on theme. Getting some really interesting shapes and how things all work together here. So these are just a couple of little thumbnail sketches on, again, getting a little people mover for a toddler and how the variety changed quite a bit. So, and again, notice, this is the first one that we started to utilize, that handler graphic that we're looking at some of the earlier sketches, like some of these guys right here. We go back to that. Now, notice some of those shapes are now being influenced in here. A little bit more straightforward, but we got a lot more organic as this program began to develop itself. So that was it. So let me stop right there for a moment, Dakota. Any questions you have about these sketches? I hope these have been some help to you in putting together a product design piece that you're working on. So let me hold on for a moment here. We'll just address some of your questions if they come up. Good stuff, Dakota. I'm really happy for the work that you're doing, and while I'm at it too, please don't dissuade yourself from sending me sketches or things you're working on. I'll be more than happy to help you as time moves on here to kind of give you a little bit of a break and hopefully open up some windows of opportunity for you to really develop your skill set. And you have been doing a great job in putting some things together too. So a lot of progress made in the past few sketches you've sent. Anything else? Any questions at all? And I guess one of the things I'd like to ask of you, hopefully these sketches have been some help to you to see very clear. Good. Thanks very much, Dakota. Super. So, okay, let's move along here. Put that guy there. Let's put that guy there. And we'll move along here and get some of this metal Toledo stuff out of the way. And we'll put these guys together with this stack. And that's that. And let's kind of shift gears here. And again, some other product work we're dealing with here. Variety of clients. This was done for Panasonic. Interesting things here that really are looking at, for example, Panasonic has been interesting in terms of to deal with. I did some things with them and some pencil graphic work in Prismacolor. Went to work with those on some did all their packaging graphics and all their marketing work. Then all of a sudden out of that, Panasonic came along and saw the sketches. He said, hey, we'd like to have you develop maybe some thumbnail studies or sketch rendering studies for a new pencil sharpener. So we're going to have, these are some concept sketches based on how that's all put together. Just again, ballpoint pen, a little bit of pencil, a little bit of pastel to kind of give it some character behind it. Looking at due ways and shapes of recording or sharpening pencils and their product line. So this is sketch number one. Another pass looking at some of the shapes, getting a little bit more torpedic-like, a little more vertical with it. Again, variety. Taking a look at different shots here. And I think while I'm at this stage of the game too, I think it's worthwhile to mention that when I go through a conceptual range of sketches, after all the research is set in and all things are settled, I really go back in and open up the doors and really give a broad base of looks and characterizations, unless they have a very specific look. Maybe it's a facelift. Maybe they've got a product line that's already there. We want to take a couple of changes or maybe some minor changes to that shape. Then we deal with that. But most of the work I've done, quite frankly, has been wide open, fresh sheet of paper all the way through. New platform, new material, new market. All those things have played an influence in putting together the sketches that we're dealing with here. So, but again, I don't think it's sinful at all to really open up the doors and show the variety of things and form vocabulary you have, particular to the shape or the process that they're dealing with, no matter what the product line is. There's always a variation on theme. There's always a wide open infinity about how to develop these forms and make sure they really matter. So there's another little page two. Let's move along here very quickly. I don't want to bore you to death. These are studies that were done. Of all things, I have a friend, in California, in Simi Valley, that was involved with the Apple group and said, hey, JD, we'd like to have you do some concept sketches on some maybe future think for Apple phone. These are some little thumbnail studies we did, for example, pocket type that pivots, etc., and articulates that this could become an LED set, or even hologram of some sort. So we're looking at variations on theme about how to work with this thing, and how maybe a screen slides out and opens up again, and it gives you more of a panorama. But these are real quick little tone paper sketches. And by the way, if you would like, I'm thinking about doing this in the next few scenes and so forth, a future reference here. We'll go back in and do some tone paper work. Are you familiar with that, Dakota? Have you ever done some work on tone paper like this? Great process to work with. I'll show you some things here in a few minutes. But I just want to make sure you'd be interested. What are some of the things you think of when it comes to creating thumbnail sketches? Do you have an overall? That's a great question. No, I really don't have an overall thumbnail silhouette in mind. I'll take the basic packaging and work around that packaging and go through a whole variety of different shapes and forms and surfaces. And this one's a little more restrictive because you're working with an Apple phone. That's a pretty restrictive area. But for all the other things we've shown you here today, much more open-minded, a lot more, for lack of another term, freewheeling, but yet with some purpose behind it all. So when I think about that, creating thumbnail sketches, I try to create variety of materials, character, marketability, color. All these things become really interesting. And so I hope that answers your questions about how do you create a thumbnail sketch. I still believe with all my heart that it's wide open. There's never been a formula, for example, or shape, unless you're given. Let me clarify that. Hopefully, unless you're given an assignment where, okay, here's the standard product. We're gonna make 3 changes in these areas. Give us some variations on that theme. Now that's a different matter. But as I said earlier too, Dakota, most of the work I've done over the course of my career has been a blank sheet. For some odd reason, I don't know why, I've been very fortunate to get in there and do some innovative work and inspiring work with a variety of clients. And it's really been helpful for me in terms of learning how to put the process together. So I hope that answers your question. Secondly, is I have one here. I haven't worked on tone paper. From what I've seen, I tell you, once you start working with that, Dakota, the tone paper work, it's absolutely stunning. And I think I'm going to go ahead and maybe in the next week or two and do some really neat stuff on tone paper, hopefully, the subject matter we're dealing with. I'm working with a client now that might allow me to do that and show it live. I can't do that until I get license from them or freedom to approve that can be shown on the air. But if we get the license on that, I'm going to go ahead and show you some thumbnail sketches on tone paper. The reason why, the tone paper is very unique. It's a Sid Mead special. I was a genius at it. And the thing that's great about tone paper is this is already the middle ground. The gray is the middle ground. All you're doing in tone paper is working north into highlight and south into shadow. The whole thing is being soft. You don't have to create the middle ground. It's already there. So I'll get into that more in detail as we kind of unfold as we open session to session here. So these are some little thumbnail sketches on tone paper. Another series of sketches, same product. Again, a little bit more variation. Notice how this first pass, pretty straightforward, almost a little bit more converted. Some variation, but not much. And then this second page, going back out there to Apple, was simply, again, a lot more variation on how to, like a flip screen, articulating, a little bit more streamlined looking. This may be a flip system or a slide system. Again, same thing here. All the idea behind that was to get into a panorama of certain things on the screen itself. For example, you could take these sketches, for example, and this one, the variation theme, where it didn't show you was opening to the right, and it kept going, and open up a panorama, so you get to see more of the shape itself, so or more of the scene you're working with here. So again, variations on theme. So back and return. These are little camera studies done again for Panasonic and guys that do that kind of work. These are little thumbnail sketches, just a ballpoint pen, a little bit of marker, and roughing some things out, some elevation, concept, elevation, concept, elevation, concept. Looking at how these things come together here. So it's just really neat stuff. And I hope what you're noticing here in this stream today, and I'm going to say this very carefully, because it doesn't come from being selfish. It comes from being selfless. I hope you notice the variety of approaches you can take with media. It's endless. And I think I've learned over the course of time of working with my client base, every time I go through something, I'll change tempo all the time. Some ballpoint pen, some Prisma, some pastel, some marker. It changes all the time. And the reason I do that, Dakota, is because when you send out your sketches to your clients, for example, you're not pigeonholed into only doing one form. For example, you're only good at ballpoint pen sketches. That to me is fatal. What you want to send out to your client base is a variety of methods that you deal with to let them see that you've got a skill range that can really begin to be an asset for them in time to come. And it builds a relationship too. The relationship is such, boy, these guys do some neat stuff. let's go back and work with them again. I could not begin to tell you the number of times I've had clients call me back and say, love the work, love the variation you're sending out here. We'd love to have you, we want to hire you again and again and again. That to me is golden. That makes sense, Dakota? Do not allow yourself to become pigeonholed or trapped into, oh, he only does this or she does that. Open it all up and just flood them with certain, even in concept sketches like this, ballpoint pen. Then I went to tone paper. Then I went back to pastel on marker. Just really neat stuff. Let them see the variation in theme and how we can create work for them to evaluate, approve, and get to market. Any comments here at all, Dakota, before I move on? Coming down near the end of the line here. That's great. Super. Let's go back here. Again, same family of forms. Going a little further with some of the shape. This is more of a disc type pattern. Getting into camera work and so forth. Again, variation on theme. Ballpoint pen. A little bit of marker, just real simple, and then just scratchy looking little thumbnail sketches that take maybe about 2 or 3 minutes a page to crank it out and go from there. So then again, let's move along here. Some camera systems, more traditional, and I think this is done for a group, I think in California, no, pardon me, I take that back, in Florida, looking at security cameras. Maybe a walkability one that kind of travels around the area and does its scanning work and the like. Again, more fixed, but again, neat stuff in terms of just getting ideas down and sending out sketches that kind of make a difference to what your client base does and how they see their product line and how they can improve upon it. And maybe new innovations like a walkability security system. Kind of neat stuff. Go back again. This is done for a soft sculpture manufacturer up in northern Ohio, where they do a lot of soft sculpture like travel bags, utility bags, school bags, etc. Just real quick little marker studies, and again, ballpoint pen, just putting some pieces together for it all together. See what you're looking at. Different various stitching systems, different colors or patterns to work with, different materials. A lot of fun. Again, a different mindset altogether, and working with a soft sculpture piece as opposed to a hard molded plastic or a metal fabrication piece. Big difference. Gives you a little more flexibility. They want, in this case, they're getting a little bit more flexibility, like a mountain view, for example. They want a much more flexibility to be a little rigid where you need to be, and yet soft where you have to unfold it and pack things into it and so forth. So there we are. These are some studies done for, of all things, Hewlett-Packard. These are little pencil sketches that I sent out initially on just PC towers. Different ways of looking at how to put that. Oh, let me move this over just a little bit and get that in the frame here. There you are. Just towers. The pen, again, ballpoint pen. Sometimes what's interesting is sometimes the client will kind of look at these sketches and say, well, I haven't seen this before. This is really new. And you come back, well, thank you very much. It's something I work with quite a bit frequently, and it's a very interchangeable form because it's quick, it's very simple, and it serves a purpose. So sometimes you don't need to do a lot of things on like papers, for example, like graphics paper and all that. Just changing sequence sometimes really helps. But it's amazing the feedback you get when you change theme and change approach on designing some of the work that you're dealing with here. So that was done again. Tower work, again, same package, a little bit further. Pardon me again. Excuse me. Looking at other ways of looking at the process and just putting together some thumbnail sketches on towers and how they might look in terms of getting away from the same old rectangular piece, being a little bit more avant-garde, for example, much more prism-like here and a lot more sculptural looking here. So again, the themes change from time to time. Very interesting how it all comes together. Let me just kind of put these back in place here. Pardon me while I off screen. We get those back together, and from what it's worth, I think that's a pretty good overview of where we are with that little product design review. As I said earlier, when I started the stream today, I just wanted to open it up a little bit more and go back in and say, let's look at maybe a bit of a portfolio to kind of change the range of things we're dealing with here before we move on and begin to move on some things for next week. So let me stop there for a moment and address any questions you might have. Dakota, anything here in remaining time that you want to discuss, or any questions you might have? I'll reach over here and get some of the rest of this stuff put together. That's where we started. And I think the real intent for me was, in addition to actually showing these sketches from like a limited portfolio, I mean, I've got thousands of stuff, and I think I've got about 65 portfolios just full of different things, from product, automotive, landscape, architecture, interior, architecture, exterior, on and on the list goes. But I just kind of selected some things out of the profile here to show you the range of things we're dealing with here. So But I think a good review too to let you know that I'm just not. I don't fall in love with one particular discipline when I go through every Wednesday. Boy, pardon me again. I try to get through, for example, change gears, change subject matter, change the approach, change the methodology, change the technique. Very helpful, hopefully, for people like yourself who are very kind enough to tune in and maybe take advantage of some of the things we're talking about and expand upon them. So, Dakota, one last, any conversational, any questions at all? And I can't thank you enough for taking the time to tune in today. Really interesting. Do you ever work on digital? Yes, I do. Work on digital. But, it's really funny, very odd, Dakota. When I work on digital stuff, my clients just don't want that. They want more handcrafted skills. Because if we can generate the idea for them, the idea behind that process is that when when we put them sketches together like much more hand-on crafted work, they can take that thing much more quickly, convert it to a digital system. I just worked a program here with a group in Indiana last week. They didn't want digital work. They wanted handcrafted sketches on a project they were working with. So I sent the sketches out, and I got back, for example, just yesterday, I got a call from the engineering department that they transferred those sketches into a digital format from their system, much more cleaner, much more efficient. So yes, I do. From a practice side, I do a lot of sketch work and so forth. They're working on a Huon tablet. I'm trying to get that linked up into my computer system here to kind of do some examples of that in the future. But we have to make some changes on the digital setup, on the setup for the filming system to get that to take place. But we're trying to work on that. So does that help to answer your question? It's a very odd phenomenon. I would have never expected that, but I think it's coming back full force. Even the automotive guys are looking at the possibility of, there's a lot of digital work being done, and most of it's being done on a tube now. But a good friend of mine, I've got two students, former students. One is the director of Chevrolet Global. The other is the director of Cadillac Global. And we talk back and forth all the time. He said, hey, JD, you wouldn't believe the number of people we're looking at, for example, now that really want more hands-on stuff, because we can take care of the digital stuff in-house. It's much more fluid. So very good, Dakota. Thank you for your answer. Well, I think that's going to wrap things up for today's setup here, and I'm really looking forward to getting into next week. And I think next week I might try a question for you, Dakota, if you're still there. Have you ever heard of empathic sketching? Empathic sketching. I'll just wait here for a response, because I think it might be a very interesting little arsenal in your weaponry system here to work with here. One of the most dramatic pieces, for example, in addition to tone paper we might work with here in the next few seams and so forth. I'll start to get into that so you can see what we're doing. You've never heard of empathic sketches? Oh, I'll tell you what, Dakota. Tune in next week. I'm going to go together, and I've got a program coming in from California dealing with advanced vehicle aircraft design work. Empathic sketching is a very simple emotional bypass or pass-through of sketching with thick and thin lines, very dramatic. It's hard to describe, but once you see it operate, it's absolutely phenomenal. Again, it's another Sid Mead approach to creativity. So it is a means of method. It's a very emotional sketch rendering format that gives you a variety of solutions in one or two swipes. I hope that answers your question, because it's difficult to describe, but once you see it and apply it, you'll see the difference right away. I have used empathic sketches all my career. I was working with Sid, from aircraft work, automobile work, architecture, interior space. It's really interesting. So what I'll do, let's do this next week. I promise I'll put together a program based on empathic sketches for advanced vehicle aircraft, escort fighters, or maybe medium-range bombers for this group I'm working with out in California. So that's what we'll work on next week, and I'm excited for it too. So I think you'll really enjoy what that's all about. So once again, Dakota, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope Antares is doing well. Kind of miss him today, but I'm glad you're with us, Dakota. And if you have any questions about your work, or you've got some things you want to pass along, please feel free to pass them over, and I'll do the best I can to look at them. It might take me a little bit of time to get back with you, but I shall do that. And again, I greatly appreciate your dedication to joining us every week. I hope it's been of some help to you. You've been an enormous inspiration to me. The questions, the feedback makes a big difference. It's not just a one-man show. It's everybody out there dealing on certain things they're working with and getting improvement. And hopefully, I hope I'm making a difference. Let's put it that way. So we look forward to seeing you next week. Hope you have a great week all the time. I want to take a moment and look at my website, drcontrast.com. website. We're going to actually make some changes on that as we're moving along here with it. Also, please drop me a note at jim@drcontrast.com. I'll be more than happy to work with you on those things and get some things, and especially too, Dakota, if you've got things you want to work on and have questions over, just drop me a note and we'll take it from there. And listen, it's very helpful to me too. Thank you for what you're doing. As I said, to all of you who are tuning in, this means an awful lot to me, that the communication line is secure, that we're working back and forth to improve one another, and you'll really appreciate what you're doing for me. It's been really nice, because I'm not a lonely voicer. You've got input coming in, and I can change and address certain things to help you along the way. So thank you to you, Dakota, and others in your marketplace here. So all the very best. Have a great week, gang. Enjoy the day. Have a great weekend, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week with empathic sketches for advanced aircraft design, tactical fighters. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll show you how that works, Dakota, and it's much easier. Once you see it, it'll be much easier to explain and expound upon once we go through the process. And I'll use that system next week to develop aircraft work and some concept work, and that's going to go back out to the West Coast. So all that to say, and I never forget to take this in the end. To me, it's the most important part of the whole stream. Never forget to always remember to dare to be great, because you are. All the very best, gang. We'll see you next Wednesday. Have a great day and a terrific weekend. Bye-bye now.